some big things in our life, but so often we've forgotten about all the little things. And we don't say thank you for every single day. And somebody got one more thing.
Thank you, Lord.
Amen. Let's get ready to go to the Word of God. Thank you, Jesus. Before you do that, if there are any kids ages 8 to 11 that would like to get a PK's notebook, they fill those out with notes from the sermon each week, and then I take a look and then grab a snack to help them make it through the service. Please feel free to see Sister Tamara here in the back to grab that. We're going to the book of Lamentations in the New King James Version, chapter 3, verse number 1. Brother Larry read part of this for us today. I'm going to go a little bit further. Lamentations chapter 3, verse number 1. If you're in your electronic Bible, it's in the New King James Version that we're going to read. It says, I am the man who has seen affliction by the rod of his wrath.
Come on now.
He has led me and made me walk in darkness and not in light.
Well,
surely he has turned his hand against me time and time again throughout the day. He has aged my flesh and my skin
come on with it.
and broken my bones. He has besieged me and surrounded me with bitterness and woe. He's talking about God.
Come on now.
He has set me in dark places like the dead of long ago. He has hedged me in so that I cannot get out. Isolated me. He has made my chain heavy. Even when I cry out and shout, he shuts out my prayer.
Come on with it.
He has blocked my ways with hewn stone. He has made my paths crooked. He has been to me a bear, lying in wait, like a lion in ambush. He has turned aside my ways and torn me in pieces. He has made me desolate.
Wow.
He has bent his bow and set me up as a target for the arrow. He has caused the arrows of his quiver to pierce my loins. I have become the ridicule of all my people, their taunting song all the day. He has filled me with bitterness. He has made me drink wormwood. He has also broken my teeth with gravel and covered me with ashes.
Wow.
You have moved my soul far from peace. I have forgotten prosperity. And I said, my strength and my hope have perished from the Lord. Remember my affliction and roaming, the wormwood and the gall.
Well,
My soul still remembers and sinks within me. But this I recall to my mind. Therefore I have hope. Through the Lord's mercies,
Yes, sir.
we are not consumed,
Say it.
because his compassion fail not.
Well,
They are new every morning. Great is
yes, sir.
your faithfulness.
Amen. Yes, sir.
Woo! Great
Come on
is.
now.
Somebody say bipolar faith.
Bipolar faith.
You may be seated. 7 and none of y'all can be dismissed. Somebody else say bipolar faith. A mental bipolar disorder is absolutely taken lightly. Bipolar disorder is not just something made up. It's not just a spirit. It's a diagnosis. It's also known as manic depressive illness. It's a brain disorder that causes shifts in mood and energy and activity levels and the ability to carry out day-to-day tasks. It's a real thing.
That's right.
And if anyone in the house thinks that you or someone that you love might be suffering from it, then I urge you to seek treatment.
Well,
It's no shame. And the stigma we've attached to it is not godly. It simply means that there's something on the inside that needs a little help to function as it should. That's bipolar disorder. But let's break it down a little bit further. The actual word bipolar has a meaning of its own.
come on now.
Bipolar means something that goes between two extremes. It means from one end of the spectrum to the other, having two opposing sides. So yes, there is bipolar disorder, but a whole lot of other stuff can also be bipolar.
Wow.
Let me give a real life example that I think we can relate to. When we look at chicken restaurants,
Come on, say
they
it.
can be bipolar. For instance, Church's Chicken is at one end of the spectrum, and Chick-fil-A is on the other.
Say it.
That's right.
When you go to Church's Chicken, you might sit at the speaker for a good 2 minutes before anybody says anything. Yet at Chick-fil-A, someone is standing outside waiting for you to arrive. Now, don't get me wrong, I like Church's fried chicken.
Come on,
This
man.
is just an analogy for the sake of the
Come on
gospel.
now.
But even the sides at these two restaurants are bipolar. Because at Chick-fil-A, you can get fruit and side salads or even a superfood salad with your
Wow.
meal. Juxtapose this to churches where you get mashed potatoes or jalapeno cheese bombers or fried okra.
Come on now.
It's bipolar. It's between two extremes. And again, let me be clear. I will tear a church's fried chicken leg up. But I have never been to Chick-fil-A and they were out of anything.
That's right. That's right.
But I have been to Church's Chicken and they were actually out of chicken. The two things are just bipolar. But before we laugh at churches too hard, I want us to know that without a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, we too can be bipolar. We go between two extremes.
Say that. Say that. Say
We
that.
waver between one end of the spectrum and the other. In many ways, we are bipolar.
Yeah.
Come on now.
We're bipolar in our prayer. When we need something from God, He can't get us to shut up.
Say it. Say it. Come on.
But when all is well, He can't hardly get a word out of us. Bipolar. We're bipolar in our praise. Because when we get a good blessing, I'm talking about a good blessing, a job or a car or a house or a loan, we will give God a mighty praise. But when the lights are off
Come on with it. Come
and
on
the
with
car is broken down,
Yeah.
we can hardly muster up a good amen.
Come on,
Bipolar. Do I have any folks in here that will admit that sometimes you might go back and forth between two extremes? I might be sweet as sugar today, and I could be mean as a snake tomorrow.
Say that. Say that.
I might work 60 hours one week and clock in late every day the next week. I might work out 2 times a day consistently for a week and then not go to the gym again for a month.
Say it.
We might not have an official diagnosis, but in a lot of things, we are bipolar. We're back and we're forth. We teeter and we totter. We're up and we're down. We're high and we're low. We will and then we won't. We do and then we don't. We are and then we're not. In so many areas of our life, we're bipolar.
Say it. Say it.
We're bipolar in our dieting. We're bipolar in our Bible study. We're bipolar in our relationships. We're bipolar in our spending. We're bipolar in our opinions. We're bipolar in our prayer and our praise. And we are bipolar in our faith.
Come on now.
Oh yeah, I said bipolar in our faith. We're like Brother Jeremiah, who is often referred to as the weeping prophet. For what we read in the book of Jeremiah and Lamentations, which is believed to be written by Jeremiah, it seems that Jeremiah was a little bipolar in his faith. He had faith enough to speak what God said, but then he was an emotional wreck after he said it. He had faith to give people the prophecies of doom and gloom, but then he couldn't handle people's reaction to it. Jeremiah had faith in his gift, but not enough faith to stand strong when it came to that gift. He had faith in his calling, but not faith in his own work. Jeremiah seems like you and me. He was bipolar in his faith. And I don't want to tear Jeremiah down. He was a mighty prophet. He had to deliver some difficult messages. He had to carry a heavy weight for the kingdom of God. I got mad respect for Jeremiah. But what I would like to do, as always, is to use Jeremiah's story to help us get better.
That's right.
I want us to dissect Jeremiah's bipolar faith in order to overcome our own. Let me just check the house today before we get in too far. Is it anybody besides me in here that might not be even killed all the time in your faith? Is it anybody in here that sometimes struggles to keep your faith on a solid ground?
Say it.
Is it somebody in here that says, sometimes I feel full of faith and sometimes I don't? Sometimes I believe and sometimes I worry myself to death. Sometimes I'm real solid and then sometimes I'm weak. Sometimes I'm all in and then sometimes I'm about halfway out. If I could tell the truth without the judgment of the saints, I would have to admit that my faith can go from one extreme to the other. Is there anybody in the house today? Okay, good. Then we've got the right group for this study. Let's dig in, because I want to look at the root cause. What caused Jeremiah's seemingly bipolar faith? And what causes our bipolar faith?
Preach it.
I think that might help us to mature beyond our faith struggle. Here's what the word showed me. The first thing that causes our faith to be bipolar is the hardship of life.
Come on, say it.
Oh, Jeremiah lists a few things that could apply to all of us, because in verse 4, Mr. Wardy, he says, he has aged my flesh and my skin and broken my bones. In verse 5, he said, he surrounded me with bitterness and woe. And in verse 17, Mr. Paul, he said, I have forgotten prosperity. 18 says, and my strength and my hope have perished. It sounds like Jeremiah was experiencing some of the same hardships every day in life that you and I experience. I raise my hand right here and say, Jeremiah, I know something about being broken. Because life knows how to break.
Say it.
I know something about being bitter, because life is good at making you bitter. I know something about forgotten prosperity, because life can easily overtake any thoughts of wealth and generational wealth. I know why we're a little bipolar in our faith, it's because the hardships of life will take our faith from one extreme to the other. Can I get a witness in here? I had faith in my strength, Sylvia, until I found out how badly I could get broken. I had faith in my joy, Sherelle, until I found out how hard it is to stop being bitter. I had faith in my prosperous future until I felt the chokehold of the verge of poverty. It's not that we don't have faith. It's just that the hardships of life make our faith bipolar. They take us from one extreme to the other. I believe, and then life yanks me back. It seems that every time my faith reaches to the heavens, life buries it deep in the depths of day-to-day hardship. Will somebody give me a good amen right here? If you got faith, but it's hard. Come on and give me a good hallelujah if you've really been trying, but it's hard. I see you. Because God told me to tell you that even in the midst of your hardship, hold on to your faith. Even though it's taken everything that you got right now, hold on to your faith. Even if you lose everything else, don't lose your faith. God said that part right there was for somebody specific in the house this morning, because even if the odds are stacked completely against you, hold on to your faith. Come on and lay your hands on your own self and say, hold on to your faith. If you came because you wanted to be encouraged this morning, then go ahead and do like David and encourage your very self and say, hold on to your faith. Stand firm in your faith. Plant yourself in the center of your faith. Life is going to happen, but faith is going to rule the day. There's a prophecy in here today. Can I define faith for us in here today? Faith is the substance of things hoped for. It is the evidence of things not seen. And God said if you keep the faith while it's hard, He's going to blessing. God, I thank you for what my tears have been covering up. We can look at your neighbor and preach to him and say, your hardship is handsome. Your hardship is handsome. I know it's hard, baby, but hold on to your baby. I know you can't see it yet, but hold on to your baby. Somebody throw your hands up and say, my holder. Faith. Because the hardship, they test our faith.
My God.
The second reason,
Lord have mercy.
Come on, man.
you preach. The second reason that I think we struggle with bipolar faith, Minister
Come on
Sonia,
now.
is because of the memories of our soul.
Yeah.
2 times in this chapter,
Well.
we hear Jeremiah refer to the past.
Uh-huh.
In verse 1, he said, I am a man
I am a man.
who has seen
Come on with it.
affliction.
Yeah.
Come on with it.
Later in verse 19, he says, remember my affliction and roaming,
Uh-huh.
the wormwood and gall, my soul still remembers
Come on now.
and sinks within me. If I could put myself in Jeremiah's shoes, I think I would declare, my mind wants to have faith,
Say
but my
it.
soul remembers.
Lord have mercy.
Our soul is our mind, our will, our emotion, and the combination of these things is very strong. The soul remembers. I believe that if I had time to pass the mic in here today, most of us could testify about a current situation that's being tainted by something in the past.
Lord have mercy.
Every one of us probably has a struggle of faith right now that's being made even more difficult because of what our soul cannot
Say it,
forget.
Simon.
Somebody in here wants to have faith in a new prospect, but your soul remembers the past disappointment.
Yeah.
Somebody in here wants to have faith in a better 2020,
Come on now.
but your soul remembers the struggle of
Remember.
2019.
Come on, say it.
Somebody in here even wants to have faith in yourself. But your soul, your very own soul,
Yeah.
remembers the flaws of your old self. And every time our soul replays a memory, our faith begins to fluctuate. I think I'll just get real right here. We want to have faith in our friend of a different race, but our soul remembers past injustice. We want to have faith in our government and our leaders, but our soul remembers that it's always been rigged against
Come on,
us.
come on.
We want to have faith in this relationship that seems to have promise, but our soul remembers the betrayal from the last one. I need somebody that feels like me in here today that says, I want to have faith, but my soul remembers. Can I just preach like Jeremiah in here? My soul remembers the darkness. My soul remembers my bitterness and woe. My soul remembers when I tried, but I couldn't get out. I know it seems like my faith is bipolar. I want to have faith, but my soul remembers. My soul remembers when I cried and when I shouted. My soul remembers the unexpected ambush. My soul remembers when I was torn into pieces. I just need you to testify to your neighbor right here, like Jeremiah, and say, I am a man who has seen affliction. Can you testify to somebody on the other side and say, I want to have faith, but my soul just remembers. My soul remembers when I was bent and I was bowed. My soul remembers when there was a target on my back. I had to cry right here, Rodney, when God made me remember. My soul remembers when I affliction. I am a woman who has seen affliction. Is there anybody in the house this morning that don't mind testifying with your hands? If you lift them up for just a moment and say, I've seen some stuff that shook my faith. I've been through some situations that made it hard for me to believe. It's not that I don't love Jesus, and it's not that I don't believe his word, but if you've seen what I say, I know my grammar is bad right there, but if you've seen what I say, then you would understand my point. It's because of my hardship. It's because of my soul that won't let me forget. But if I had to be real honest right here, I would say a lot of times, David, my faith is bipolar because my path is not sure. Jeremiah said in this book, he has led me and made me walk in darkness and not in the light. He said that God has blocked my ways and made my path crooked. So I can understand, Minister Tasha, why Jeremiah's faith was bipolar. He had a purpose that was not certain. He was on a path that was not sure. And I believe it's somebody in this house that'll say, after what life has taken me through, after what my soul has seen, if I had to be honest, in 2019, it seems like my path is not exactly sure. Can I get a real one in the house this morning that'll throw your head back and declare and say, I really don't know where God is taking me. Now don't act real churchy in here and act like you know the plan for your life. I need some real folks in here that'll say, I really have no idea what God has in store for me. Well, today is the day for your faith to lead the way. Today is the day for you to learn to be all right with a path that's gonna be crooked. I'm sorry I can't preach roses, sunshine, candy, corn, and rain, but I gotta preach this morning that sometimes God is gonna take you on a path that is not sure. Sometimes God is gonna put you on a path, baby, that just does not make sense. And sometimes, church, God is gonna lead you, and you're gonna have to walk in darkness. But can I remind somebody of how Jeremiah wraps up this section Can you bless him if he ever came through? Can you bless him if he came through again? Can you bless him if he came through again? Can you bless him if he came through again? God is great is God is great is His faithfulness and again, again, and again, last year, and the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that, and the year before that, the last time I messed up, and the time before that, and the time before that, and the time before that. Somebody say again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. Great is, great is, great is. Will you encourage your neighbor and say, keep the faith, keep on doing it again. Tell somebody, keep the faith, keep on doing it again. Keep the faith, keep on doing it again. Keep the faith, keep on doing it again. I believe, I believe, I believe he's gonna do it again. If he did it, you ought to tell him thank you. If he did it again, you ought to tell him hallelujah. If he did it again, you ought to open up your mouth. If he did it again, you ought to give God a praise. If he did it again, you ought to shout glory. If he did it again, say something. God, I thank you. Stop your crying. Stop your weeping. Behind your hardship, he's gonna do it again. Behind your struggle, he's gonna do it again. The enemy does not want you to see what's behind your current situation. But I dare you to stop his plot and tell God thank you in the midst of your struggle. I dare you to blow his mind and give God a praise for what's hidden, for what's hidden, for what's hidden, for what's hidden, for what's hidden. Can you bless him while it's hard? Can you keep the faith while it's hard? Thank you, thank you. I believe, I believe, we get ready to go. But I dare you to press through your hardship. I dare you to press through your struggle. Rise up, oh faithful, rise up, oh believer, and say I can't see it, but I believe it. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things So if you woke up today and it wasn't your best day, His mercy tomorrow's coming. I knew it every morning. It's like, if you're in this house and you're struggling with your faith and you want to believe, all you gotta do is cry out to the Lord. I need thee, oh, I need thee every hour. I need thee, oh, bless me now, my Savior. Do you believe? I tell you to lift up your hands and say, I come to thee. I need thee, oh, I need it's hard, but I believe. Oh, let me down, my Savior. I need some new mercy. So I come to thee. If your soul is remembering right now and you just can't let go of some stuff that's holding you back, if your soul is remembering what happened last time but you want to try again, I tell you to cry out to the Lord and say, I need my soul. I need thee. Because my soul won't forget. Me now, my Savior. I come. If you need him, just ask him. I come. My faith is shaky, but I'm coming. I
Thank you, Lord.
Somebody in here, you're struggling to believe right now. I need you to come. Don't be ashamed. That's the only way you're going to get through this. I'm talking to a person. If you're in here and you're struggling to believe, I need you to come to the altar.